A 16-year-old just swam the fastest 1,000-meter freestyle time in American history, 8 minutes, 32.83 seconds. And this isn't just the fastest time for his age group. It's the fastest time ever swum by an American at any age, at any point. The swimmer who posted that number is still in high school, hasn't signed a scholarship, and has never made an Olympic team. He's simply a 16-year-old training with a local club in California, heading into his junior year, still doing the same homework and same routine as any other kid his age. The coach who's about to take him on is Bob Bowman, the man who built Michael Phelps into the most decorated Olympian in history, and we'll get to what happens when those two finally start working together. But first, you need to understand where this kid actually came from, because it looks nothing like the background you'd expect from someone about to erase Phelps' name from the record books, and once you hear it, the number gets even harder to believe. Pleasanton, California isn't exactly a swimming factory. It's a quiet suburb east of the Bay Area, known more for good schools and quiet streets than for producing the next great American distance swimmer. Luka Mijatovic grew up right there, born April 22, 2009, into a family of Serbian descent, in a town where most people couldn't tell you the name of a single Olympic swimmer who came before him. Here's the detail that doesn't fit the usual born-to-swim story. Mijatovic got into the water at 3.5 years old, but by his own account, it barely stuck at first, and he's admitted as much himself. "My parents enrolled me in water safety when I was 4, he said, "but I quit at 5 to play soccer." Sit with that for a second. The future American record holder in the 1,000 free actually walked away from the pool as a 5-year-old to go kick a ball around instead, choosing a soccer field over the deep end without a second thought. He eventually found his way back to swimming, landed with the Pleasanton Seahawks under coach Steve Morsilli, and climbed through the ranks the ordinary way. Age group meets and local records. Nothing that screamed destiny yet, nothing that made him stand out from 100 other talented kids at those same meets across California. By July of 2024, at 15, he'd become the fastest 15-year-old American in the 800-meter freestyle, which was surprising rather than inevitable at the time, the kind of result that turns heads locally without making anyone outside the sport pay attention. His own coach called him a generational talent, and while that phrase gets thrown around constantly in youth sports, most kids who earn it never end up anywhere near an actual national record, let alone one that used to belong to Michael Phelps himself. At that point, he was still just a name in age group results, someone swimming coaches around the state were starting to keep an eye on, but nowhere close to a household name even inside the sport. Here's the part that stayed quiet outside the swimming world for a while. At the 2024 US Olympic Trials, Mijatovic showed up as the second youngest male swimmer in the entire field, and his best finish there was 12th in the 400-meter freestyle, a result that came and went without much notice from anyone outside the sport. 12th place at an Olympic trials isn't a scandal, and it isn't a headline. It's just quiet, the kind of result that comes from a 15-year-old getting his first real look at the deep end and realizing how far away the surface still is when the competition gets that serious. Nobody was writing next Phelps articles about a kid who finished 12th, and if anything, the story at that point ran the opposite direction. A talented junior swimmer tasting the senior level and coming up well short of the podium, well short of even making a final. Meets like that tend to go one of two ways. Some swimmers take that exposure and turn it into fuel for the next 2 years, while others fade quietly back into age group results, remembered as promising and nothing more once the next crop of 15-year-olds shows up. Nobody knew which version of Luka Mijatovic was going to show up next, and at the time, there was no way to guess. Coaches around the sport had seen plenty of 15-year-olds flash promise at a big meet and then plateau for years afterward, and there was no obvious reason to assume this would go any differently. Quick question before we get to the swim that changed everything. Did you see a kid who finished 12th at Olympic trials at 15 turning into an American record holder within 2 years? I need to know, so drop it in the comments and tell me honestly whether you clocked him back then. March 1st, 2026, at a sectionals meet in Rosedale, California. Not the Olympics, not even a national championship, just a sectional meet, one level below the biggest stage in the sport, the kind of meet that barely gets a mention outside swimming circles. The day before, Mijatovic had already thrown down a monster swim in the 500 free, going 4 minutes 5.76 seconds and breaking his own age group record by more than 3 seconds, which vaulted him to third fastest performer in US history in that event regardless of age. That swim, on its own, was supposed to be the headline coming out of the weekend, the kind of result that would lead every recap article on its own merits. But here's the thing, Sunday hadn't happened yet, and nobody in that pool building had any idea what was coming. Mijatovic stepped up for the 1,000 free 40 laps of a 25-yard pool, the kind of event built to expose whether a swimmer can hold pace deep into oxygen debt once everyone else's stroke starts falling apart around the halfway mark. He went out controlled, held his pace lap after lap, and never faded the way distance swimmers usually do late in a race like this, when the legs go heavy and the strokes get short. When he finally touched the wall, the time on the board read 8:32.83, a number that silenced the pool deck for a second before anyone reacted. Say it again, at 8 minutes 32.83 seconds, that wasn't just a personal best, and it wasn't just an age group record either. It was the actual American record in the event, a mark that had stood for over a decade, set by Clark Smith at the Texas Invitational back in December of 2015. Mijatovic didn't just beat a kid his own age that night, he beat every swimmer who has ever raced the 1,000 free on American soil, at any age, in the entire history of the event. A fact that took a moment to fully sink in, even for people who follow the sport closely. Let me put that number in real context. A high schooler swimming faster than the standing NCAA record has happened exactly one other time this century. One name owns that list. Michael Phelps beat the 200-fly NCAA record in 2003, and he was 17 years old when he did it. Already considered a prodigy on his way to becoming the greatest Olympian of all time. Mijatovic did it at 16, a full year younger than Phelps was when he pulled off the same feat. Think about what that actually means. This isn't he's good for his age, and it isn't give him a few years either. This is a teenager who is right now, tonight, faster than every college swimmer competing for national titles in that event. Grown men, scholarship athletes, the best programs in the country stacked with swimmers who've trained at this for years longer than he has. All of them, slower than a kid who hasn't even finished high school. And here's the detail that should really land. The American record he broke belonged to a Texas Longhorn, and Mijatovic himself is headed to Texas in the fall of 2027. He beat the ghost of his own future teammate's record before he'd even set foot on campus, which is the kind of detail that sounds made up until you check it and find out it's exactly true. It means the very program he's about to join will spend the next year introducing its new recruit as the kid who already broke one of its own record books from the outside. So, what happens next? In the fall of 2027, Mijatovic officially becomes a Texas Longhorn, training under Bob Bowman, the coach who turned Michael Phelps into the most decorated Olympian who ever lived. Mijatovic has said as much himself. I chose Texas because Coach Bowman is one of the best coaches of all time. And when he arrives, he won't be training alone either. He'll be sharing a pool with Leon Marchand, Summer McIntosh and Regan Smith, some of the fastest swimmers on the planet, all already working under Bowman in Texas's professional training group, which means his college career starts inside one of the most stacked training rooms in the sport's history. Before any of that, though, there's the summer of 2026 worth watching. The meet that could set him on the path toward the 2026 Pan-Pacific Championships and further down the road toward the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. 2 years ago, this same kid finished 12th at trials, a result nobody outside the sport remembers, and back then, nobody would have blamed you for forgetting his name entirely. Now he holds an American record that used to belong to a grown man, a Texas Longhorn no less, and he still hasn't graduated high school, still has homework and a high school team, and a locker at Foothill High waiting for him every fall. So here's my question for you. When a 16-year-old is already faster than the NCAA record, the actual standard set by the best swimmers in college, in an event as brutal as the 1,000 free, what does his ceiling even look like at 20? Is Luka Mijatovic the next Michael Phelps, or is that even the right comparison to make anymore, given how differently his story has started out? Drop it below. Every comment gets read.